Hello all you wonderful people on the internet, welcome to my channel. As many of you out there viewing this video right now, you probably finished Volume 2 fairly recently of Stranger Things, and I guarantee a great deal of you are upset with what happened on the show. I know I was the first time I watched it in some regards. And normally after a volume releases, I would come on here and talk about my thoughts, my theories for the next one, which will be the final volume, and that was going to be my plan, but then a lot of controversy of the volume sparked up online. Like, for example, hashtag release the Volume 2 files, and everything that went on with that, and all of these things, and all of these contradictory opinions. And, you know, I never could really solidify which one I thought was, like, what I fully believed in, because I'd see something, and I'm very easily susceptible in some form or fashion, sorry, but I'll see one thing, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, wait, I agree with that, that is a good point, and I'll see another thing, and I'll be like, oh my, that might be a better point. And I didn't really feel justified talking about the volume as a whole on here, but so I wasn't going to make a video. I was just gonna make like a post on the post tab and be like, hey, I'm just gonna wait till Volume 3 releases to have the full picture. But then I did some digging and I came up with a pretty big theory about 3 a.m. last night, and I wasn't the first person to come up with this. I've seen other things online too, so I will credit the people throughout the video of where I got some of this information from. But I just feel like I really need to address this, just massively. So, sorry for that long introduction, but that's what this video is going to be about. So, what I believe is that Will is under Vecna's control. And the entirety of Volume 2, the reason why it feels so rushed, the reason why it feels just so articulate and the character seems so out of place, is because that is the way the narrative is supposed to lead you to. And I know that just feels like, yeah, okay, that's what everyone's saying, but I have a good bit of evidence that just backs that up, and it's a little easier to just, like, not grow across. So I'm just going to start, because it's a little harder to explain without having all of my facts to back me up, because I am a very logical person. So to start, I think I'm going to just address some dialogue that was in Season 1 of Stranger Things at the end. And at the end of Season 1, they say, whoa, 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 that's not it, is it? The campaign was way too short. Yeah. And then Mike goes, it was 10 hours, but it doesn't make any sense. The current runtime that we know of Volume 2 of Stranger Things is 10 hours and 8 minutes. And as of current times, none of it makes sense. And it just seems too short, and it seems like they cut things out, which would mean hashtag release the Volume 2 files. It's Mike's campaign is what does not make sense, which a main complaint, which I have as well, is that Mike's character does not make sense in Volume 2. It would just be really strange for this to be foreshadowed so early on of Mike's character, something that Mike made, and his campaign not making sense, and his character not making sense in Season 5, and then for Elle to say the line in Season 5, this is like one of your campaigns, you cannot write the ending. Another major complaint that a lot of people, including myself, a lot of these things I'm addressing, I also agree with, was that they are doing a lot more telling than showing. And a major thing in storytelling is you always need to just show things rather than just flat out state them. It just makes them a little better. But almost all the conversations in Stranger Things are, hey, see, you look at this flashlight here? Look, it's a bridge. And don't ask why I just had those items sitting underneath my desk. But I completely agree. It's like the vibe I get from it is I'm trying to fill in my friends who didn't see half of what went on in my life. Almost as if we didn't see what half the scenes happened. Or almost if it's kind of like a play, obscured by a director. I was going to address that fact a little later in the video, but I'm just going to turn a couple pages of my notes and go ahead and say it now, because I feel like that would make a little more sense. But in Season 4, Henry/Vecna/1 to Mr. Whatsit says, everyone is waiting for it all to be over, all while performing in a silly, terrible play day after day. And just ignore my cat, he's just been running around this entire video. But anyways, Vecna, that's what Vecna, I'm going to say Vecna for this, but that's what Vecna is talking about. And he's saying how it kind of is like he's a director of a play, and that's what we get. Like, everything is being directed by the Mind Flayer, everything's being, like, you know, moved around by the Mind Flayer. That's kind of why Max is running up that hill scene at the end, or like the revise of it, compared to the original, just looks straight out of a play, or like it was rehearsed, or was being acted out, or as if he was like a master of puppets, which, master of puppets, Sounds familiar, doesn't it? At the end of season 4 in the piggyback, we all know of Eddie Munson's iconic performance of Master of Puppets. And here's some lyrics of Master of Puppets for you. Master of Puppets, I'm pulling your strings, twisting your mind, smashing your dreams. Blinded by me, you can't see a thing. Just call my name, can I hear you scream? That was foreshadowed in season 4, and it was such a pivotal moment that we had to pay attention to. I'm just saying, it looks pretty suspicious, doesn't it? Especially since they kind of say that Vecna is somewhat of a puppet master, or Will is somewhat of a puppet. I forgot who was called a puppet master, but I'm pretty sure somewhere in the show that's where that is stated. I think Mike says it, which, again, Mike says it. Moving on and kind of switching topics. So, in the scene where it is in Shock Jock and they're turning up the voltage of the thing, I'm gonna put the pictures on the screen, and I'm gonna put up the username of who pointed this out on Twitter. The color of the voltage turner changes. I think it goes from red to gray or gray to red. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's red to gray though. And it seems very, very suspicious if you ask me. I know it's such a minute detail, but the fact that they focus on it when it's first introduced, and the second time it is shown again, that they actually put focus on the scene for a couple of seconds, they want you to notice this. And we know that when you see inconsistencies in colors and different things, it's a part of Vecna's vision, like the roundabout and merry-go-round in Holly's little Vecna vision. It was actually supposed to be yellow, but it was blue. So it was actually supposed to be Will, because Will is yellow. I just think that the color symbolism there is there. And, a lot of people will be like, oh, it's just a mistake. But with a show that has as much detail put into it and as much people watching as Stranger Things, I feel like, why would they just completely change it? For example, why would they just change a color of a prop? And I know that picture, the Under Armour thing being snuck in as being spread around, and I am also a little mad about that in continuity-wise, but, that wasn't how they didn't have to change a prop to have that. That just slipped in on accident, which, again, I'm a little mad about that. But I'm just saying, I'm someone who is very involved in the creative film. I'm field, I write, I do a lot of different things, and a very popular phrase here is that the wall is never just really blue, because some people might be like, oh, in literature when you're having your teacher discuss it or something, oh, why are you deviling into this so much? It's not symbolism. The wall is just blue for a color because that's what they felt like. But them feeling like that is still a reason. Everything in media has a reason, even if it was just a subconscious decision, even if the decision was, oh, I like the color blue, so this character is going to also like the color blue because they're my self-insert. And then we might use that blue for other foreshadowing aspects. That's just, I know it's a completely different tangent, I'm just saying. When all of these things add up, it gets to a point. And I have even more. I mean, I already mentioned this earlier, but it's pretty obvious that Will was being Vecna the entirety of Volume 2, and that they're trying to separate him from his heart and isolate him so he can become this, big bad master weapon, kind of like what Brenner and the Mind Flayer did to Henry, because we see they keep on getting paralleled with different story aspects, especially in the first Shadow, which I know a lot of people have not seen, but if there's a lot of analysis videos out there that I should make one myself so I could make a subtle plug, but whatever. There's a lot of analysis videos out there that are very well done, and you can go and look at these things. But really, my main thing about this was that things don't really add up. I mean, Mike and Will fight more commonly or more distance. The party isn't grouped together as frequently as they were in earlier volumes, especially in Volume 2, because they're just not grouped together at all. They were closer in Volume 1, but after Will and Vecna had that kind of mind swap thing, and when their minds kind of got scrambled a little bit in Shock Jock, everything's just felt off. Because that's why a lot of people say they like Shock Jock a lot more than Camzot's and The Bridge. That's right after Vecna's mind got scrambled and everything. I mean, Will and Vecna's mind got scrambled and everything just went off skew and everything started to feel off. And it will also other inconsistencies is Joyce saying that Will was 11 when he went missing, and the whole thing that is Birthday Gate, and Karen and Ted having that discussion about Holly's age and the reason why Holly kind of got older than she actually did, because I know they recasted the part, but if they were going to recast the part, why did they not pick a younger kid if not older. I know there was a large discourse online, and I personally just thought, well, I mean, Nell Fisher is very talented, and also it'd be easier to work with older kids in some regards. But also, what if that could be some inconsistencies from the wormhole, the effects of the wormhole, and then the dimensions getting closer as time goes on? What if that is kind of an inconsistency caused by that? And that's why Vecna is so obsessed with clocks, because it's time inconsistencies, and we see that all these different things move time to cause rifts and other things. And I'm gonna touch on that later. Well, I'm gonna go on to it now. So I'm an avid listener of the WSQK radio station that they put on as promotional bits for Stranger Things, because I love 80s music, so I listen to it in my free time. And I try to analyze if I have any time, and quite a few, throughout the broadcast, we have clocks ticking quite a bit, and we kind of just push it aside randomly. They've been Vecna. It's like the whole audience has been being Vecna this entire time, and we just haven't noticed. Kind of like the characters in the show. They just haven't noticed. They brushed it off, all these inconsistencies. They're just like, oh, well, it's whatever. But when the Mind Flayer was present in season 2, he witnessed all these, memories, for example, and in season of Will's, that kind of broke him out of his possession. But in season 3 and 4, all of these memories just start to get askew, and they stop being true. It talks about how good of an older brother Jonathan is, and it talks about Castle Byers. Well, in season 3, Castle Byers gets destroyed, and in season 4, Jonathan isn't the best big brother, and Joyce isn't the most protective mother, and Mike and Will's friendship is just fraying at the seams. And that is when Vecna is there, and Vecna is present, and Vecna is killing. But when Vecna disappears for 8 months, all of these things come back. I hope you see except for Castle Byers, obviously. But most of these things come back to the forefront. Jonathan is a tad bit more engaged brother. Joyce is a lot more protective. Mike and Will's friendship has gotten better. The party is back together again. Things are starting to amend once more. But then, when Vecna returns, and they had the mind scramble thing at the end of Shock Jock, and everything started to happen, everything slowly starts to fade away again. And when they reiterate these visions after these memories give Will powers, these things that cause these memories start to fade away again. Joyce isn't as oh my gosh, and Mike isn't as himself, and we're slowly losing these things. And when they reiterate these visions from the powers, we only see the ones of Jonathan and Will, because the only person that is still hasn't completely lost yet is Jonathan, because he was in the Upside Down, and we still see that he's kind of himself during Will's coming out scene, and he still gives him a hug and all of that jazz. So it just hasn't gotten to him yet. Well, I honestly did not understand this quite a bit, but I'm sure someone out there smarter than me probably does, so I'm gonna just put the tweet on the screen real quick. But basically, what I gathered from that is that there's this thing called twinners, and twinners are basically things that share certain life events, so births, deaths, and Henry and Will are somewhat kind of twinners in this thing, and major life events exist in parallel. So we know they both have the same birthday, for one, and we both know that a part of them died on November 6th, because that is the day that in the first shadow, spoiler alert, Henry lost Patty, or he thought he lost Patty, and that is the day that Will went missing, and people thought they lost Will. Sound familiar? And then the last season is coming up on November 6th, so some type of loss is going to happen there. I know that for a fact. Also, March 26th, we learned from the first shadow, another spoiler, was the day that Henry got his powers, and he first went to Dimension X, aka the Abyss. Just saying, are March 22nd and November 6th the only 2 days to ever exist? It makes you wonder. Going back to that twinners thing I was talking about, twinners can flip or migrate to other worlds, but do so by occupying the body of their counterparts. And to that, I raise you this. If Will can momentarily control Vecna, why can't it go the other way around, and why hasn't it already? Well, after everything I've just said, I feel like I can support my claim and my belief that it already has. Plus, that's basically what happened in the first shadow. I mean, people called it a plot hole that Will didn't pass out at the end of the Max Z scene, but we see in the first shadow that as Henry uses his powers and he gets slowly more taken over by the Mind Flayer, he gets stronger and is less susceptible to fall damage, I guess. That's not the best way to say it, but practically. Also, I would like to add this in here because I will address this again in a minute, and it'll be more important in a minute. This is the order I have it in my notes, and it'll make my brain go scatterbrain again if I skip it. But in Shock Jock, Mike hugs Will at the beginning and is very, kind of like a happy puppy dog, kind of following him like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing, your powers are innate, you're a sorcerer, you're awesome, Will, you're awesome. But at the end of Shock Jock, after the mind scramble thing, he just kind of refuses to touch Will. We see moments where he's like hesitating to do so and just decides not to, almost as if something is holding him back. Max wasn't saved. I just want to bring this up. Max and Mike are commonly paralleled as similar storylines and just similar personalities. Max wasn't saved by music. She was saved by the touch of a loved one. And Mike, something's holding Mike back from touching Will, which might have gotten him out of his possession sooner. Seems kind of weird. Okay, in one of my other videos, I can't remember if it's my last one or the one before that. Maybe you should just watch both to understand. But I think it was 2 months ago. You don't have to watch both, but you could. I appreciate the support. Anyways, but I talk about the theory of Mike being Vecna'd and all of the evidence behind that, so I won't reiterate points. I won't reheat cold soup. But to avoid giving Will any signals that he might like him, that Mike might like him, and to isolate him, that is why it's just so off, and that Vecna has gotten to both of them, and he's kind of like it's Vecna's curse. And like I said, and that's what I said earlier about him being the director of a play and orchestrating all these things to happen through Will and through Mike and using their minds to do so. Because Mike and Will are kind of the heart of everything that goes on, and we see this talked about in the show. It explicitly states that Will sees Mike as the heart. And in the scene where Will is looking through the bridge, you see an X mark over his heart. And Holly says a lot of the time, she says twice in the Mindscape, M marks the spot, instead of saying X marks the spot. But there's an X over the heart. And what does M stand for? MM. Flip it around. Wicked. Just kidding. That was funnier in my head. But basically, M stands for Mike. And if there's an X over a heart, there's an M over his heart, and that is what is in between the bridge and getting in the way of the world's collapsing. Where is the Christmas lights when you need them? And if I were to say that the Mind Flayer directing everything and orchestrating everything would be a metaphor for forced conformity, what then? What then? In another one of my videos, I talk about the theory of Will losing an eye, and that theory has been circulating on the internet for forever, since the Phineas Gage happenstance in season 2 when Will was paralleled with him. And if you don't know what happened to Phineas Gage, read a book. But I'm going to read from my notebook so I don't get any of this wrong, and I can't read half my handwriting, so if I stutter, it's not my fault. Okay, that cut out because I stuttered, and I'm going to reread it again because I'm insecure. Okay. In some cultures, covering one eye is a representation of humility and submission. Others see it as an act of secrecy or a reminder to focus on one's intuition and immersive thoughts. In the first shadow, Henry wasn't fully taken by the Mind Flayer until he lost Patty. He wasn't fully taken till the end, and until he lost Patty and he thought it was his fault. Basically, my theory is that so I did not love the coming out scene. I already said that earlier. Speaking of the coming out scene, I have a lot of different opinions on this, and I'm not going to there's a lot of things I could say about this. In all honesty, I do not think it was they did it as much justice as they should, unless you read into it quite a bit, which is what I am about to do. But I do think that there were certain things they could have done a little better, and I don't love that they did it in front of everyone and they kind of made it a press conference and other things. There's just a lot of things I have wrong with that. But I'm going to push that aside and just read the thing and the analysis and the details that I have been able to obscure. So Will was not himself during that scene. I mean, he calls the children vessels. He says that he enjoys getting lost in the woods. He says that he's enjoyed biking to Melvod's, which is a convenience store in his timeline, but they got milkshakes there, and it was a diner in Henry's timeline, and that's what Will mentions, getting milkshakes there. But that wouldn't make sense. He also downplays his own abilities, keep on saying, I'm not really a sorcerer, blah, 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 even though other people bring it up. And he is also just, emphasizing that Vecna's name is Henry and humanizing him in some regard. This is my live reaction of when Will said Mike was his Tammy. Oh, no! My God! No! Yeah, I was not that happy, but I just want to say this all objectively. So, and this is just what I've written down. I think the reason why he phrased things a certain way and why he kind of talked a little odd in that scene was he was trying to get a secret message across to Mike. But we see that time and time again, Mike is always the first one to notice when something is wrong, and he's a very smart person, and they bring that back to full front in Volume 1 when he's putting all the plans together. And I just think the reason why he will phrase things so weirdly is it's almost as if he's trying to communicate a secret code, which we've seen them use time and time again, like with the radio broadcast. And he says things like, he starts it off with, "But I am different," and about how he pretended he wasn't, which is a parallel to the van scene a season prior. And he states it as, "I don't like girls." He could have said it any other way, but that is the exact phrasing he uses, which could be a send back to the rain scene in season 3. And it's just like supposed to get, well, I think the reason why he said it like that is he's like trying to get Mike thinking, because in that entire scene, everyone's talking about how his face looks a little weird, and he's like, oh my gosh, maybe he's having an epiphany, maybe he's like realizing this isn't Will, something is happening, and this is kind of when it's clocking in his brain, and he's like realizing what's happening, and he's like actively sorting everything out in his mind. And he talks about how Vecna made him think things were wrong with him, and he says that something was wrong, and he really iterates that something was wrong. He repeats that like twice, almost if you should think that something is wrong. And he's talked about how he pushes people away, but he never pushed anyone away, really. I mean, Henry pushed Patty away in the first Shadow, so that could be what that's referencing. And then, at the end of the scene, Mike looks at Will, nods, then Will nods back. And in a webtoon that I read called Jackson's Diaries, right now, I'm not going to spoil the plot, but there was something very similar going on, which was they were trying to devise a secret plan without someone noticing, or a secret entity noticing, and they do it in a very similar way. So I'm just saying, the parallels are there in my mind, and I've seen it happen in other media sources, which I don't think that's what they were trying to do actively, but I feel like that could just subconsciously be a thing I've noticed in another form of media. I think this could all just come down to the fact that the audience is really the ones getting Vecna'd. Because like during the run scene at the end of Shock Jock, like Vecna, when they're saying it, he doesn't look at Max, he looks at the screen, he looks at the audience as if he's trying to warn us of something. Also ignore the sound in the back. Someone's watching Stranger Things without me, and I'm very sad about that. That is why I'm going to end this discussion here, because I feel like this is a good place to add it. Before, I just wanted to add one more thing that I didn't know where to put in the video. I mean, we know that Callie and Elle, like, their powers are from Henry's blood, and they talk about that in Volume 2, and Callie can cause illusions, so that means Vecna could probably do something similar, which would just go into this, and also kind of feed into the fact that I think Callie's a traitor, and I don't trust her, and I know I said that I was trying to go in with an open mind in one of my last videos, but I don't agree with that anymore, and a lot of people don't on the internet, and I was trying to, like, meet her with full, like, okay, let's just see what you've got to offer, and that's all I'm going to say. For example, there are things I thought they did really well. Like, I thought Dustin and Steve's arcs, oh, that was so sweet to me. Although I do think they're kind of setting up for Dustin or Steve to die or something crazy to happen there, which does scare me. But I just thought they closed that really well. And I thought that there's other things I thought they did well too. And the Lou Max reunion, I thought that was pretty great. But again, there were quite a few things that I do find kind of inconsistent, and I do have my bones to pick with. The final isn't out yet, and I can't really say anything. Also, I do think that the fact that they gave Michael Wheeler a bomb is gonna, like, blow up in his face, pun intended, in some form or fashion. I feel like it's inevitable, and I'm very scared about that for how that's gonna play out in the final. But I just would think that it'd be such an amazing way to end the series, because I know they're going to go out with a bang. They're going to go out with one big last plot twist, something very meta, I would assume, could work as well, like the theory I'm explaining, that the audience was actually the ones being Vecna'd. And I don't know, maybe I could be looking too far into this. I just feel like it would be a shame to just drop a 10-year-long saga, really, without some big closure thing that would just blow everyone's minds, and I feel like this would be the perfect thing to do so. That's all I have for today, but as always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for coming to my Ella Talks. See you next time. Bye!